So this Dan Le, is it Dan Le Batard?
Le Batard.
Dan, I know that you're probably familiar with me. Maybe I'm familiar with you.
You didn't know his name, but yeah.
I know.
It's a weird.
He's been fast tracked. I don't understand why they fast tracked this guy. I don't think he's that talented.
His dad's funny.
And I do think his dad's funny. And it's kind of the male template that the media has gone to, and that is this visual sports show, with Skip Bayless and Shannon.
Well,
and
it started with
obviously
Dan Patrick.
And Colin Cowherd. And there's a lot of
Rome.
and Steve Smith and Rome. And there's a lot of talented people in that space. Really, they are. And these networks, and the reason why everybody scrambled for all this men skewing sports content is because in today's millennial day and age, one, they have to visually see something. And then two, all the men that listen to these sports and watch these sports shows during the day were regularly men that had jobs. But because there's more men staying home now than ever, there's been a mad dash to men skewing sports programming. That's how this guy got fast-tracked.
Well,
am I not right?
Yeah, you pretty much are, but then there was a mass exodus of guys from ESPN going to Fox Sports.
Yeah, there's been a but the whole industry, whether it's radio, whether it's television, whether it's internet, whether it's Barstool Sports, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Twitch, whether it's whatever, is men programming has exploded because our dads and us went to work during the day, and more men don't work during the day.
Very true.
There was never this much men skewing programming when more men were out, working on the back of a bulldozer and couldn't be at home on the internet watching this stupid stuff. I think there's a lot of important people and a lot of very talented people in this space. I think Dan's one of them. But Dan, you must realize this. They hired you to stay in your little sports lane, and guys like me can speak about things like what you are getting in trouble about, but will never be in your lane. We will never get the push that you got because of your little PG sports, kooky lane that you're in. It's very syndicatable, and it's very, very safe. And if you're going to be unsafe, you're basically a hired gun to talk about sports and goofy stuff. And if you are going to stay in the lane of huge syndication and making the kind of money you are, they're going to tell you to not talk about politics because they have people that have those lanes. But with that lane comes far more headache. And right now, Dan Le Batard doesn't produce too many headaches being in this little goofy sports lane. But when you go to this political lane, you either have one or two options. You can either not be as highly syndicated and be able to say anything you want, or if you're going to be Johnny bought and paid for, you're going to have to play by their rules. And they told you to stay out of politics. And when you call them out live on the air, as I have before, it doesn't end well.
Especially Disney and ABC. You don't want to be calling.
So Dan Le Batard, go ahead and be a dick. Talk about Trump in a bad way. Talk about Trump in a good way. Talk about politics. When Disney told you not to, Dan Le Batard, you'll be gone faster than you ever thought, and you'll have to start scratching for scraps like we are. Yep. You have to stay in the lane that they tell you by. I'm telling you right now, you're on a very slippery slope, Dan Le Batard. If you want to be a dick and you're going to call these guys out, when they didn't hire you under the guise of being a dick and calling people out, then they're going to get rid of you. Nobody is bigger than them.
What happened last night?
So he's a sports guy with, 400 people that help him and goofy little cartoons in the back, and his dad's incorporated. And the lane that they have selected and niched out for him work well.
Yeah, it's going well.
They don't want you to talk about politics. It's their radio station. It's their network.
I messed it up.
This.
Let me have a talk with you. Shut up, Dan, and talk about the Cubs.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Well,
felt,
Bubba's a prime case for it, though.
Listen, Brian, you can be a dick all you want. I'm talking about firsthand knowledge.
Yeah.
Had I shut up and been quiet and not said, I wouldn't be in the druthers I am today. So take this as somebody who's trying to help you out.
Yeah, but if you had done that from the beginning, you wouldn't have gotten to where you got to.
No, there was a point. There's been a point where you know that.
Well,
Yeah.
no, I know that,
Somebody
but I'm
needed to
saying
tap you on the shoulder.
at some point you need to lay it out there.
As a broadcaster that's been on the mic longer than Dan, that's probably as talented in the lane that I stay in as Dan, it's somebody that Dan might listen to. I'm telling you now, Dan, to shut up and talk about the Cubs. That's it. Shut up and talk about the Cubs.
And don't screw a good thing up.
You got a great thing. You've got a great thing that you might take for granted. I did.
How many affiliates does he have?
Sit down and shut up and talk about the Cubs, period.
un-American what happened last night. Okay, basically a chant "Send her back" is not, it's not the America that my parents came to get for us, for exiles, for brown people. Like, there's a racial division in this country that's being
And guess what? You are 99.99% better than all the brown people that have come over here in your job and your opportunity that you've been given. I'm not telling brown people or you to shut up. I'm telling to stay in your lane. You can go do the Dan Le Batard after hours show and say all this you want. Maybe, I don't know. Stay in your lane that they've niched out for you.
Instigated by the president, and we here at ESPN haven't had the stomach for that fight because Jamel did some things on Twitter, and you saw what happened after that. And then here, all of a sudden, nobody talks politics on.
So now, didn't he have like an associate producer or something that tried to do this and got suspended?
No.
Well,
Jamel Hill was another broadcaster on ESPN, had a big name, had a TV show, and she got very political, and they basically told her to go pound sand.
All right, so he should see that, right?
He's saying that. He's acknowledging it out of the gate here. He's saying, I know I shouldn't be saying this, but I can't help myself.
Well, then we can't help but yourself, but to put some other guy that we will make a star in here. Take your dad and get the hell out of here.
His dad's in the back. I told him not to do it.
Anything unless we can use one of these sports figures as a meat shield in the most cowardly possible way to discuss these subjects. But what happened last night at this rally is deeply offensive.
Or is it?
Well, he's speaking. I think this hits a little bit close to home for him because he's speaking as a child of people that were exiled and came over here through a very similar situation.
I understand, but
to what Omar did.
But Disney,
you still got to keep your mouth shut.
But Disney says, "Listen, we appreciate that, and the people that have gone through some similar things. But this isn't the forum for it."
I hear you. You're right. I mean, you got to do what your employer says.
By the president of our country. And this tweet from Nick Wright, if you're listening to people chant, "Send her back," about a Somali refugee who serves in Congress. Nick Wright writes,
If you tell people they can't do it, then fundamentally you've taken every right away. People can chant whatever they want to their politicians. This wasn't a little girl that they propped up freshly off a boat from Cuba. And this is a politician that's a public figure. Am I not right?
Yep.
It's a public figure. It may not be your cup of tea, Dan, but the lane that you have paid millions of dollars to stay in shouldn't be speaking about this. In my opinion.
Don't talk politics on here, but this isn't political. This is obvious. This is abhorrent, obviously racist.
It's very political. It's also wrong. Not wrong on your behalf, Dan. It's wrong in general. Yes, people need to have some class, but you're not. You're not the.
You're not Limbaugh.
Well, yeah, you're not. You weren't hired to be the weather balloon of politics. You're hired to be an ass-kicking, opinionated, non-conventional delivery mechanism sports guy. With all your little pageantry and your goofiness and your little cartoons and your dad and your best friend and all that.
Dangerous rhetoric, and not calling it out makes you complicit.
Why does it get the camera on this guy? He looks uncomfortable.
I know.
Back chant and the go back.
He looks like almost a normal B-Fud, does he not?
Yeah.
We came from are so antithetical to what we should be.
The hell are they doing?
Meanwhile, his P1s The guys like, I don't know, Caveman and listen to sports radio.
Oh, they're Trump supporters.
Well, I know that, but they're completely tuned out of this. Whether this is obviously anti-Trump, but they're like, man, we want to know the Cubs score, right?
Yeah.
We want to know what's happening in Dolphins training camp. I don't even know what you're talking about.
The alternative, though, Bubba, is that he maybe is in contract negotiations with ESPN, and he already knows he's not re-signing with them, and so he's like, "Screw it, I'm going to use this platform while I still can."
Maybe. I mean, you're in that case, Dan just basically faced me.
But
Dan just posterized me.
But you really think what's his other alternative? Going to Fox Sports, and you know what Fox supports, right? They support Trump.
Yeah, go ahead and see this on Fox. See if it gets any quick. It'll get your throat off faster.
Well, he may know it's his last chance to even try and spout off on it.
So right, what he is saying.
I think that whatever offer Fox may have, be like, hey, Dan, you know what? That's great. The offer still stands, but you're not going to be talking about what you did, right? It's going to be an addendum to your new contract.
It is so wrong what the president of our country is doing, trying to go down, getting reelected, by dividing the masses at a time when the old white man, the old rich white man, feels oppressed, being attacked by minorities, black.
I don't think this is good, man.
People, brown people, women. That's who we're going after now.
Look at how uncomfortable
black people, brown people, women.
Why did they got the goddamn camera on him?
Black people, brown people, women.
The platform. That's what you're saying.
That's the new Little Nas X record. Black people, brown people, women, in a good way. I just want to, for the record, I want to let you know that those people go right to the front of the line on our show. Black people, brown people, women. Can we even get any more of wanting to super serve an audience better than that?
And the only way we can discuss it around here, because this isn't about politics, it's about race. What you're seeing happening around here is about race, and it's been turned into politics. And
man, you don't leave this to the people that do it for a living. It's like when I try to talk about politics. You're like, stupid. You're dumb.
You can feel the passion he has for
only
it.
Talk about
Good. It. Go, Dan. Then after the show, after the after
around
show,
here,
have the Dan Le Batard Black
Political
People,
Hour.
Brown People, Women show. But tell me who won last night.
Steve Kerr Popovich says something. We don't talk about what is happening unless there's some sort of weak, cowardly sports angle that we can run it through, when sports has always been a place where this stuff changes.
All right, so you know what? Listen, you're saying now that you have a lot of opinions about what's happening in our country, and so if you would like to stop doing your very highly paid and widely distributed sports show and apply to be the next Glenn Beck, or I should Michael Savage, or whatever, then we don't know if that's going to work out. That space a little crowded.
FT Stinkweasel with the $25 straight up cheer.
Muhammad Ali was fighting for this stuff in the 60s. The Bill Russell and Jim Brown are really old. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is old.
I wonder if them taking the camera off of him is the producer's way of shut up, Dan.
Yeah,
it's him saying what it is he's running cover for himself, saying, "Look, I couldn't kill his mic. You guys can do that, but I didn't
kill
put."
His veto.
This is really weird
Right.
that they've got the camera on this
You
guy.
know what,
the
Brian?
whole
You're
time.
right. It's the producer going to be able to go back to ABC, Disney, I should say, and say, "Listen, Disney, ESPN." And say, listen, I had him off camera trying to give him the Iggy. I can't just interject and say, Dan, you might want to be quiet. ABC, the Disney executives are on the phone right now, full hot. Well, they should. Although he should have said that, right?
These people who were fighting, the most powerful among us in sports, who are fighting in the civil rights era for atrocities happening to black people that we're still paying for now in a country where this is our
this guy's out.
greatest sin. What has happened to minorities in this country? They're old and dying. Jim Brown walks with a cane, man.
So, you know, and Brian, he conveniently doesn't want to incorporate sports, but he conveniently incorporates the Jim Browns and everybody else to solidify his political view, right?
Well, what I think,
But it's a stretch.
I think what I think he's trying to get at is that for years, and his larger point is for years, the only time that, mainstream sports radio can talk about these issues is if they're championed by one of these athletes. But he's saying these athletes are so old now who are championing it, and we're still dealing with those issues.
He needs to say, I was hired to be a sports guy, not a political guy, and my company would like me to stay in the sports lane.
They should just be drawing a cube right now, and they would have no troubles.
Walks with a cane. He's going to
like, hey, Dan, chill out, draw a cube.
Yeah. Draw a cube whenever you want to get political, buddy.
Can you imagine what his cube will look like right now? It'd be just shot out. Be like,
go to the grave without
be a real mad-looking cube, would it not?
having seen change. He's going to go to the grave with Colin Kaepernick still out of
Blitz, you know about this guy. You know how over he is. Do you think that Disney might suspend this guy? I mean, or is he so big?
I don't know.
I don't know, man.
Listen to this show.
league. Literally blackballed. Because we're taking this stuff and making
Well, he's not that good.
I'd rather listen to the Anthony show. Far better than this.
about the flag.
You know, I've been listening to the Anthony. I've been watching Compound Media more and more. Did you know that? I like Anthony's kind of cynical approach.
I do too.
I do. Seriously, I've been watching it. I go between him and Joe Rogan.
When it's not about the flag.
Or how about him on Joe Rogan?
It's about
I love that. I'd love that.
race, like burning a cross and saying it's about God. This isn't about the flag.
I got the camera off of him again.
I think him and I would do a good show together, Blitz. I mean, I'm not trying to put myself over, but just his smart-ass dynamic with my shotgun deal, I think it would be a good show.
It would be interesting.
I think so. By the way, tomorrow, a guy that works well with me and Tuttle, me, Shannon Burke, tomorrow for a 3-day.
Big Tex.
Big Tex. And you're right, man. They are the people that are running the Blitz K that's running the switcher is trying to give somebody the Iggy. Is he not? Watch him.
Making it about the flag when it's not about the flag.
Like, help me out here, buddy.
Everybody. He's showing, and what he's doing is showing that everybody was uncomfortable and nobody was contributing.
Yep.
So that when they come after him, he's like, look, I couldn't cut the mics because then that would have ended my relationship with Dan, and I didn't know what you guys were going to do about it. But I was trying to show you guys. This was an SOS we're sending out here.
Yep.
Yeah, these guys all look uncomfortable as hell.
God, Dan,
Brian,
you're always lawyered up.
They're all thinking, I need to find a new job.
Well, they're all thinking.
I said SOSs every show.
It's all in code.
Yep.
It's Morse.
I know you.
Why do you think he taps on the glass so much?
I know. Well,
race, like burning a cross and saying it's about God. This isn't about the flag. This is deeply offensive to me as somebody whose parents made all the sacrifices to get to this country. Send her back. How are you any more American than her?
Is he not way too close to this to have to? Listen, there's really not an objective, or I should say another side of this opinion of his. But don't you think that he's very, very, very much skewed because he is an immigrant? Like you can't take.
He was born here, I think.
But you can't take a step back and look at this objectively if you're him. He's way close to this.
It's much more. It's like a parent who lost a child to DUI and having them talk about DUI.
But he's not even being objective about it. Like this isn't.
Nobody's objective about anything, but everybody puts their own spin on whatever the subject is.
But if you're a sports show, this is not what you want. It's not what your audience wants.
No, it's not a good look.
More privileged, you're whiter, you're richer, but people don't know whether your money's real or not. You've had every privilege afforded to you by America.
His co-host is so uncomfortable.
Every
Look at
privilege.
this.
Oh, I know. Look at that.
Like he can't even
And
look
now
at
what
Le Batard.
you do with that power is you go after brown people and black people and minorities. And around here, we won't talk about it.
And Brian, you are so right. The Blitz switcher dude is trying to he's trying to throw a smoke signal up to Disney. Is he not?
Do they have a camera that's just on Dan because they haven't showed it yet?
No.
Yeah, no.
They showed like the wide shot.
Yeah, no. He's got an ISO. Yes, very.
They
much
haven't
so.
showed it yet.
No.
Unless Russell Wilson is saying something about it on his Instagram page, then we have the power to run with it. Weak ass shield. It is antithetical to what we should be. And if you're not calling it abhorrent, obviously by the president, and
first time they showed him at the very
end. No, that was the very, very, very beginning.
That's before he got started.
Yeah, once he got rolled up. Will ESPN suspend Dan Le Batard? On Friday, the network reminded all employees to avoid politics. The reminder was prompted by ESPN host Dan Le Batard, who rallied against President Trump on ESPN in a show last week. Le Batard said, we here at ESPN don't have the stomach to fight. We don't talk about what is happening unless it has some type of weak, cowardly sports angle, and we can't run through, blah, blah, blah. I would say that they would not suspend him until he violates that today, right?
Yeah, they've already warned him.
So, like, if he is Dan sports guy today, but if he starts getting on this, It's gone. He's gone.
What if he talks about this and he's like,
gone?